from Boston and beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeartStation.
Tonight's episode of Conversations with Coach La is brought to you by Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. Do you need to delegate some tasks, or are you looking to declutter a space? Well, assign it to her. Introducing Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. She's currently accepting new clients and offers a variety of back office services depending on your needs. Contact Shamina at 857-273-1528, 857-273-1528, or email shaminaaustin@gmail.com for more information.
Conversations with Coach La.
Coach La, your favorite neighborhood therapist, having real hard convos, contrasting pessimists. Generational trauma explored, broach delicate, getting to the root of the pain, healing impediments. Every week signs copay free lessons. Bet on self, trust the process, no questions. Feel your feels, journey to be healed, no stressing. Conversations with Coach La's now in session.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La. How y'all feeling? Welcome. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Y'all know I am broadcasting live from the Urban Heat Studios right here in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. And I am your favorite around the way therapist. They call me Coach La. And we are radio with a purpose. You know, we are Boston's only Black-owned radio station on the iHeartRadio platform. So y'all know every week I'm excited, right? But every now and again, I'm super excited, right? And I'm in this space of, wow, the things that I have been blessed to do, the people I've been blessed to meet by way of radio, by way of poetry, I'm extremely grateful. So tonight's show is super dope because, for one, my sister is tuning all the way in, logging in from Tennessee. Y'all might have recently seen her out at the City Winery doing her thing, but she was here in Boston and we had an opportunity to connect at an event that was hosted by her uncle through UEG Events that was at the Comedy Studio here in Cambridge. It was called Spoken Word and Friends, and I was the host. And she came down to bless us with her powerful words and her presence. The sister is just, beautiful inside and out. So I'd like to introduce you. If you have not met this sister, you're going to meet her tonight and have a conversation with me and her on the virtual couch. But she's a poet that is on a Grammy-nominated album in the spoken word category called Civil Rights, The South Got Something to Say, which is by Miss Queen Sheba. Her work has emerged and emerges the elegance of Maya Angelou with the raw intensity of battle rap. So y'all already know she's just fire. She's spitting bars, she's spitting passion. She's brought by way of Nashville. She went to the military and she's cultivated a voice that is both commanding and deeply resonates. Her dynamic style has earned her a title in slam poetry. Y'all don't know what slam poetry is. It's like battle rap for rappers. Slam poetry is like that for poets, right? She is a champion with a distinction of being ranked the 5th best poet in the world in 2023. That is just unbelievable. She has a knack for storytelling that bridges spoken word, performance, and production. And she recently headlined, like I told y'all, at a sold out show at the City Winery in Nashville. Girls Bad. Her artistry has been defined by its authenticity, offering narratives that amplify an unrepresented, let me get that right, unrepresented voices while exploring the depths of identity, resilience, and humanity. She is currently producing a silent film, y'all. Like, how many people y'all know that's even doing silent films? She is the founder of a very popular poetry hotline, the Project Folklore, which is pushing the boundaries of her creativity and further solidifies her status as a multifaceted artist. Wolfe is a force in the poetry world, creating a legacy of empowerment and innovation. So without further ado, I'd like to bring my sister on to Conversations with Coach La. What's going on, Miss Wolfe? Season. What's up, girl? Welcome to the virtual couch. I'm so excited that you were able to spend some time with me because I know you're super busy with all your shows and just everything that you do in the community. So thank you for sharing your time and your space with all of the listeners. I like to call them the conversationalists. So you ready to have this conversation?
I am absolutely ready.
Awesome. So that when we met, I got an opportunity to hear one of your pieces that said was deeply connected some things you went through in your life. So tonight I want to dive into how you have used spoken word to tell your story, and really be able to connect with your audience. So can you tell me a little bit more about you and what's inspired you to, one, become a poet and a spoken word artist, given that you went to the military? So like, what came first, second, third?
Okay, so poetry was first. I have been writing poetry since grade school, and it became professional or performative around my senior year in high school. I was that student that, would get caught writing in class or, having finished my work early, and here I am writing, journaling. And there was this one day, and I bring her up all the time, my teacher, Miss Michelle Carney, and she took one of my notebooks and was like, "You need to focus, do your work." I was like, "It's done." She's like, "Check it." I'm like, I have an A. I never forget this day because this sent me ablaze. She read what I wrote, never told me about it. But then the next day at school, she was like, "Hey, I'm going to enter you into this competition. You're going to write a poem. You're going to win."
Ooh.
I was like, okay, all right. Wrote the poem, ended up winning because at the time, my high school, being um, in low impoverished communities, I feel like, we just always had a reputation for things like music and maybe sports. But my high school at the time wasn't getting any recognition for, academics. So that started in high school where I was entering competitions, being acknowledged for my writing. And it was just a time where I wasn't really ready to go to college. So I went to the military. And while I was in the military, I was stationed in Clarksville, which is an hour away from Nashville. So on my weekends, when I wasn't doing Army things, I would go to Nashville and I would look for artist community, spoken word poetry community. So I was doing poetry on the weekends while I was in the Army. So when I got out of the military, I just decided to stay here and officially go to college, which I go to TSU, as well as pursue my dreams and aspirations in poetry. So poetry was first, but everything brought itself back together. It's kind of weird when I think about it.
It's interesting how our journeys sort of take its own twists and turns. I always tell people to embrace it. You never know where certain opportunities are going to come. Sometimes come disguised as your as bad news, like getting your notebook taken away, right? And her trying to get you to focus, that opened up a whole nother world.
Yeah.
Now, I had an opportunity of seeing you perform the piece. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the name of the piece because often people don't tell you the names of pieces when they're performing them.
Right.
But the piece that you did, that was about, I think it was about you connected domestic violence to basketball.
Right.
And I think it's called Tina Turner. Is it called Tina Turner?
Tina Turner with the jump shot.
Tina Turner with the jump shot. One of my favorite pieces that you've done. I always ask poets to do poetry. You up for some poetry? You up for doing some poetry live?
Absolutely.
Can you bless your sister with that piece?
Okay, so
try to take the N words out if you can.
Okay. And a boy playing basketball at my local recreation center said, "Smile. You too pretty to be looking so mean. I guess all that taking charges for men got me feeling defensive. I know firsthand what it looked like to block. a man shot but then be blocked, then unblocked but still let a man come home to lay up, but ain't I MVP? How I remained available for every jail call, yet never received one for the altar. How many times did I put money on that man's books when he wouldn't even put none on mine for my tuition? Dang, I should have listened to mine. And when witnesses point, guard him by owning up to crimes I did not commit. When people shooting, guard him. Used my body as shield like my life was less important. I know more about being sacrificed than woman. My ex sponged off me, yet I can't even get my record expunged. Can't pass a background check, but still be expected to power forward. Piece of advice. If you are ever able to travel out of bounds and break free, throw yourself at the hands of God, because he knows. And if a man ever lay his hands on you for anything other than prayer, you better go straight Tina Turner like she did on Ike in that limo. And you fight like your life depends on it, because it probably does, but I'll give you 3 pointers. Love yourself, value yourself, respect yourself, girl, so that you never have to prove to a man that you down, because that's all that I ever was. You know how many flagrant fouls I done took to the face? So don't blame me for finally deciding to cross over to the sexual orientation where I feel the most safe. And besides, they don't seem to play that rough in the WNBA. And see, every time I was in pain, there was always another woman to come and console me. And men might have had me living lavishly, but sitting in a skybox was never worth them nosebleeds. I did everything in my power to not become a victim or a domestic violence survivor, to not become my grandmother or my mother either, but a part of me feels like I internalized my mother's pain, because every time my father got drunk, that buzzard beat her. So I'll die fighting before I ever die victim, and become another hashtag say her name, and self is my first line of defense, just in case the police or judge can't assist, because when the heck does a court side with a black woman in pain? So if a man ever lay his hands on me again, thinking he's gonna get one up on me, I'll show him I think not. And if he dies, well, he dies, and I'll proudly face center and pose for my mugshot.
Mm.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm telling you, Wolf season, baby. If y'all don't know who she is, y'all better go ahead and Google her, find her. If she's in your town or your city, you need to make sure you go and get a ticket and be front and center. So you are part of a Grammy nominated album,
Yes.
Civil Rights, track number 9 to be exact.
Yes.
The track is named Churches and Abortions.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a couple other people on it, but how did you get to be a part of that project, and why that particular piece?
Well, I met Queen Sheba at the Woman of the World Poetry Slam last year, where I placed 5. There were people that were coming up to me that just weren't really satisfied with my placement. People felt that I should have won, but all's fair in slam poetry. And Queen Sheba came up to me and said, I don't know what that was about, but you should have won first place, and like walked off, right? And I was like, wait, is that Queen Sheba? Because at the time she had already been nominated for a Grammy the year prior. And I was kind of fangirling out. And, people were coming up to me saying that. But when she said it, it just hit differently. We ended up finding each other on social media, and a friendship blossomed, rooted in poetry and community there. But then she got in my personal business. Then I got in her personal business. And before you know it, we were like this duo all from that moment. And so I was going to do my poetry album this year, release it this year. But I really wasn't ready. I wanted to take a little bit of time with it. And so I told Queen Sheba, because she was one of the reasons why I was able to do that, to have my poetry album considered. She wrote the letter for me. And I was just like, I'm not ready. And she was like, well, you need to get on my album then. It was one of those types of things. Mm-hmm. And we were really trying to figure out where I fit on her album, because I am very multifaceted as an artist. And there were so many different places that I could have fit, but Churches and Abortions it fit, and I fit there specifically because of my own indoctrination. I don't consider myself Christian anymore, but I do believe that, the Bible is meant to be interpreted as a book of parables and allegory as opposed to literal in context. And that's where we had common ground. And so that's kind of how I was able to fit there on that specific piece, because it's basically the way I live my life.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I found that album to be thought-provoking in so many ways. You guys should definitely go listen to it. It's on all platforms. It's called Civil Rights. The South Has Something to Say by Queen Sheba. There's a couple of people, Malcolm Jamal Warner's on there. So there's a few names that you'll recognize on the album, but she has a very unique way of bringing in elements of jazz and R&B into the spoken word platform. So I'm wishing her luck. I know the voting is beginning. So I'm anxiously anticipating how this category is going to go, because it is there's some great projects in this category.
Yeah.
Amari Hardwick, who I had the opportunity to meet 2 years ago when I first started doing my open mic event here in Boston called Pole Therapy. I had a chance to meet him because he got interviewed on the radio, and he did a promo and encouraged me. He's in that category with his spoken word album too, and his album is awesome as well. So I'm like, whoo, it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a tough one. So I'm curious about just your journey, because it hasn't been without its struggles. You've gone through a lot of different things that comes out in a lot of the poems that you've written about. What obstacles have you faced as an independent artist, and how have they shaped you?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is just, like you mentioned, we are against some very amazing and established artists. Um, Fortunately for them, they have components behind them, such as what we refer to as machines. Having been signed to labels, having access to a lot more things that we don't have as, independent artists. So there's a lot of legwork. We don't just have people that are there with us that are the promoters and the booking the venues and booking the artists. No, it's all us. Like, we're the ones doing all the legwork. I don't get breaks from school. I still have to make sure my assignments are turned in. I luckily have been blessed with professionals and professors that still challenge me to get things done in spite of where my career is taking me. So I think that's just one of the things that it has been a struggle in my artistry, but I would say that it has helped me in allowing me to be the woman that can wear the many hats. I can promote my shows. I can do the legwork. I connect with the people. I know the artists. I pay the artists. I get paid by the artists. This is my community. I live here. So that's where my advantage is, where I think once you get to a mainstream level like the other candidates for consideration, they're not doing those types of things. You know what I mean? They kind of lose their connection to the community through that group work. So that's where my advantage is, even though we're always overworked and tired and taking naps. But how beautiful is that to be able to say, you know what, I don't have to hire anybody to do anything. I know how to do it.
Right.
Because when the videographer didn't show up, now I was on the camera. When the sound guy said he needed 2,000, I didn't have it. I had to figure out how to work it. You get me? So it's like, that has really helped me to have an advantage in that area where I really do pose as an asset to whatever production I'm on. And it's not just about me being the headliner or the performer.
That's one of the things as an entrepreneur that people sometimes forget is
Yeah.
that we are doing everything. We are promoting, we are marketing, we are back office logistics, we are customer service, we are the production team, we are the artists. Like, we are literally our brand in all aspects of it. So
Yeah.
I when I had Michael Warrior Bonds on last week, we talked about that too, and how those that love poetry can be more supportive, how people who are just in other elements of creativity can include poetry, funding sources, those are other ways. And me and you talked offline about looking at other ways to be creative as an artist, from doing workshops, going into schools, and just finding other ways to create sources of income other than just performance, which I think goes back to being an entrepreneur, is that we got to solve problems. And if funding is a problem, you got to figure out how you're going to get resources to fund your projects.
Yeah.
Which brings me to self-care and just balance, right? Part of why I did this show or do this show is because I'm a psychotherapist by day.
Yeah.
Radio is something that I've used as a platform to get the message out about taking care of your mind and your mental.
Mm-hmm.
I've always used poetry as my outlet, not as a performer, but I would just write. And then I've started to get into spoken word later on. But I used to write, I started writing poetry probably in the 4th or 5th grade. And I've just used it as journaling over the years. Now with Poe Therapy, I've been encouraging my clients to write as a source of being able to get their emotions out and using poetry as that form.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask everybody that comes on the show, what does therapy mean to you and how has it played a part in your self-care and just in your overall disposition to be able to navigate all that we get thrown at us, especially as Black women?
Yeah. So I would say a quote that really helped me at the time. I was utilizing poetry as my main source of relief, and I had to learn that poetry is therapeutic, but it shouldn't constitute as sole therapy. Because I think that oftentimes when we use vices, we use them as escapism. You get me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Poetry isn't encouraging you to talk about things, if it is not encouraging you to seek help, to join communities with people that are sharing your same obstacles, to do the work, the inner work, go back to your inner child, have those conversations, then it's a vice. And it should be used as a device instead of just a vice. Vices offer distraction. And so poetry, when I write, I'm like, wow, this is the first step for me. I was able to talk about this and get this out, admit that there's something wrong here, and then begin to outsource, whether I actually go talk to a therapist or whether I say, you know what, I realized that this poem made me aware of the fact that I might be a little bit of a people pleaser. So let's go ahead and set some boundaries in these relationships. Like, I think that poetry is supposed to be looked at as that way as opposed of escapism. So poetry is therapeutic, but it's not therapy, not by itself.
Yeah.
It puts you in the room with those that are going to help you and facilitate that space. And so therapy for me is the art of vulnerability. It's the art of transparency. It's the art of truth telling. There's nothing hidden in therapy because if we're being honest, a therapist can't really do much for me if I don't tell the truth.
Bars.
Sometimes we like to show up in these spaces. We're leaving out the parts where we're convicted. You get me? We're leaving out parts that other people have trespassed against us due to embarrassment. I'm ashamed of what this is going on, what happened to me. And we realize that shame is crippling. So therapy is the art of moving past shame and moving into acceptance. And I think that when we think about acceptance, we means that this is it. I'm defeated. No, I accept what happened to me. I understand that. All right. But we're going to move forward. That doesn't have the final say in my life. And so I think that's what I'm doing in my own life right now, therapy wise. It's just telling the truth, not being afraid to accept the parts of the story where I'm the villain, the parts where I was villainized or where I was a victim, for the purpose of just being a better person. And I think that's where my strong suit is. So that's what therapy is to me, just vulnerability, transparency, honesty.
Yeah, man. Oh, she just said a lot. You guys are tuned in to Conversations with Coach La La La, your favorite around the way therapist. I'm talking to my sister, Alexis Wolfe, a poet and educator, spoken word artist with a voice that is just powerful. You want to drop another poem on her?
All right, I'm gonna do something really quick. You can find this on my poetry hotline. I'm gonna probably connect this piece to something else. I want to keep it going. This piece is called "We Met at the Club." We met at the club. I was a party girl. I made the dance floor spell out my name. He stood on the wall reserved, a silhouette still in the music sway. Yet he never took his eyes off me. I noticed that. So I approached him. No need for liquid courage when audacity fills your liver. What's a shy guy like you doing here in a room full of sinners? He said, baby, this is where my best work happens. I come here for the forgotten songs, those looking for relief from madness. You see here, people only find a temporary version of me. But I am the way, the truth, and the life. I can offer it permanently. As he spoke, peace hugged my soul as if my soul knew who this was. But I felt intimidated and unworthy, so I asked, out of all these people in this club, why am I the one you want to save? He said, because those who dare to dance in the midst of their pain, they understand what I need. They understand the concept of praise.
I told y'all she was powerful, y'all. Alexis Wolfe. So that brings me to my question about impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your impact extends beyond the stage, beyond poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And you've talked a lot about building a legacy. So can you talk to us about what does that mean to you, especially with your work about helping women around healing trauma? Because I don't know if a lot of people peep that in your poems, you're talking about a lot of things with women.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll say, my friends refer to me as a Bible thumper. And I think maybe just poetically speaking, I'm able to look at the parable and the allegory of the Bible as opposed to the literary context through which it was originally introduced to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that in the Bible it says, what I have done, let no man undo. You know, my word will not return unto me void, but it will accomplish that which to I sent it. To me, that's legacy. You know, and as a poet, I possess the gift of word. Then it also says in the beginning was the word. And the word was with God and the word was God. So to me, it always communicated my ability to leave a legacy in the imperative nature of why that's important. You know, one of the women that influenced my style greatly just transitioned, Miss Nikki Giovanni. Had it not been for her leaving a legacy, who would I be? What would I be? How would I have known that she came that way? You know, had she not encapsulated herself, her heart, her mind in the form of poetry? And I think that that's what's extremely necessary. You ever heard the phrase someone being just ahead of their time? You know, and if it weren't for the encapsulation of whatever time that they had on this earth, there'd be no legacy. And I just want to think, I want my children to think that I was cool. You know, I want my communities to look at me and say, you know what? She's from where I'm from. And I used to battle with that where imposter syndrome was concerned, you know, feeling like I wasn't polished enough. I was too curvy, my skin being dark. Yet all of those things have worked together for my good because it gives me the opportunity to, you know, penetrate those systems and the minds of the people who God is using me as a vessel to impact. You get me? So it's like, that's why legacy is important. And it's like, man, if I left right now, I'd be surpassed by my poetry hotline. If I left right now, it'd be the stories and the things that people could say about me and how they were inspired by my gift. And to me, if you think about it, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. Because if I can't be survived by my own artistry, you know, I've done myself and my gift a disservice. So yeah, legacy is imperative, man. Who are we without that?
Yeah. So, you know, you said so much. I got like goosebumps because I think we have to control our narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we're growing up in a age, in a time where we can do that more than our ancestors could, right? In terms of someone had to be an orator, tell the story, somebody had to keep passing it down. But now you have the ability to make your footprint and say it just the way you want to say it. And even in the tone and the voice with your hotline, social media, there's just so many ways with music that we get to like leave the clues and leave that element. Like you said, if you were to leave today, you already left a stamp, which I think is super dope. One of the reasons why I am excited about even doing this show and bringing people like yourself on is that this is also part of the legacy. You know, if I go today, my son, my nieces, nephews, they can go back and listen to their aunt's voice, their grandmother's voice, and who she spoke to and what she thought, things she said. Like, it's probably nuggets in here because I'll just be running my mouth sometimes, right, y'all? But it's just so much that you pour out when you're just your authentic self. It's not scripted. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for all of the things that you've done. I know when I found you, because I didn't know who you were, right? And I remember your uncles, saying, "You don't know about my niece," and I'm like, "No." But I will tell you the smile that I had on my face because I was Googling and I found you online and I was like, "Oh, I love her." Your voice, your power, what you were talking about. And then meeting you in person, your style that you bring, a sexiness and just this boldness to poetry that I had never seen before. That even gave me more space to be my bold, my authentic self. It was like you gave me permission. Granted, I'm a psychotherapist and I already have that, but it was seeing you was like, yes, there's space for curvy, bold, loud, sassy poets. And you weren't talking about safe stuff. You know what I mean? Like that, jump shot poem about Tina Turner, like that was like blew my mind. It really did. So I'm excited to see what else you write and where else you go. The other thing that I think is super dope about Miss Alexis Wolfe season on is this 24-hour poetry line, which I have streaming across the bottom. I don't know any other poet that has done anything like that. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but she got a line, y'all. Okay, where you can call and tap in and hear her voice, hear new poetry. Like, talk about creating a platform and taking over and saying, "Hey, I'm just gonna create it for myself." I just never seen anything like that. I think that's super phenomenal. I don't think anybody else has that or has even tried to mimic it. So how did you come up with that?
Listen, so there was just this space where, as a poet, your phone is ringing off the hook. Your book back to back is City Winery here, New York here. Like, and then, that's just how I live my life. And then there's another month where ain't nobody calling me. I'm like, you know what did I do to you guys? Why aren't you calling me? But then I have to realize, like, that's just kind of how it is with every artist, whether mainstream or, on my level, right? So it's like, I wanted to be able to put something out there that didn't rely on anybody calling me or giving me an opportunity to do anything. You don't need to do that because essentially, when you allow me to use your platform, we're collaborating. And I think that as a poet, someone that represents the art form that is undervalued, underrepresented, we sometimes have these inadvertent ways of thinking about our own artistry where we're just happy to be in the room. And I just had to do away with that way of thinking. And, once I got busy, once I started, being in a relationship and my partner had a 2-year-old and I was in school and I was ready to open my business relative to what I was in school for, I'm like, you know what? I can't allow where my life is taking me to take me away from my contribution to poetry. Because with being a poet, for me, that looked like a new level of responsibility, especially becoming fifth in the world. I knew that there was a responsibility that came with that. I needed to protect the culture. I needed to preserve the culture. And I didn't think that my life or having a new family or being in school was a good enough excuse for me to not contribute. And I was like, yo, what can I do? I meditated on it. I fasted for 3 days. Okay, I ate food on the third day. But still, I got the idea. And it was like, hotline, that's so outdated. And that word stuck to me because that's what people had been telling me. Wolf, you should just rap, man. Or, Wolf, you should just, get more into your songwriter bag. Poetry, spoken word is outdated. And I realized that one of the reasons why I'm so special is because I am collaborating with what's outdated and what's in with what's in right now. Like I'm a poet, but my fashion is modern. Poetry is old, it's classic, it's timeless, but I'm 28. So my whole thing has been the collaboration of what's old versus what's new. And I said, yo, hotlines are seemingly outdated, right? But everybody has a phone. And I just was like, that's genius, God. Thank you. You know, I'm gonna give you credit, but it's my idea still, you know. When I put it together, it just was beautiful. And people call all the time because you know they can call at any time. And they leave me messages and they'll say things to me. They can text me. You know, they'll just it's just so interpersonal. And it just gave me a way to contribute. Sorry, I'm just passionate about it because I know people love it, but it just gives me an opportunity to make a contribution to the culture. Even when you can't see me perform, you know, when you can't have that connection to me in the same way you would with a live performance, you can call the hotline, and I update it every Wednesday, so it's relatively new, and that gives people time to catch up and see what's on there, you know. And that was what it was about. I believe that as a poet, I should be preserving the culture, but I should also be propelling it forward. So the hotline was a collaboration of both.
I think it's super dope. Again, you guys can go ahead and call the hotline and hear poetry. Like I said, 24/7, new stuff, new pieces. You can leave messages. I think it's genius and a great way to control your narrative, access. And now no one can tell you when you can perform, when you can't perform, because it's literally a performance. She performing on the phone, y'all. Yes. I have called and I was like, this is brilliant. Oh my goodness. I love brilliant. I love seeing us use our brains, especially entrepreneurs, to find ways to build our brand and to move things forward. So people often fall in love with poetry after, right, they hear you perform it. Similar to like if you read lyrics of a song, if you just read them, I don't know about you, it doesn't sound anything like how the person sings it. And sometimes you're like, dag, it don't read the same, right? Because people put their spin on it. And performance poetry is so different because you hear the inflection, you pause at certain points, you emphasize certain points. So it's very different than if you were to read the poem on a piece of paper. So what is it that what do you think about spoken word that makes it so transformative and for both you and the audience?
So, you know, there's a difference between poetry and spoken word. Poetry is the ability to read my writing, my book. You don't need my voice for that. In fact, you might not realize it, but you're using your own voice. So you're not stopping where I would stop. You're not using inflection. You're not doing those things in the same way or the same way that I would a spoken word piece. And now spoken word encompasses the act of performance. I consider my voice an instrument where I am moving the sound, you know, because I also play violin. And so if I just stayed on one note the entire time, it wouldn't be a song. You get me? So it's like moving from note to note, that's inflection with my voice. So I mimic the way I would on an instrument with my voice. And I think it gives a different experience. It's interpersonal. If you remember, I don't really like to be introduced and brought to the stage. No, wherever I am is the stage. I was sitting right next to somebody and I began to perform right there. That's one of the things about me that is relative to my style. And it was becoming unfortunate when everybody started knowing me because they knew, all right, she's going to perform from the audience. So it wasn't as special. But that's why spoken word, it's a different experience. It's performative. It encompasses theatrics and body movements. You know, I'm the background dancer, but I'm also the headliner. Like I'm all the things in one space, in one setting. And, you know, I really love that people say that about me after they hear me perform. But I also have to make them very aware that, you know, there's a difference between poetry and spoken word. And you might like spoken word, but you might not like poetry, and that's okay too, you know?
Yeah, I found when I started curating poet therapy, the goal was for it to be a therapeutic vibe. So I didn't emphasize that it was a open mic event or it was a poetry event. It was all about you going to experience a therapeutic vibe that's going to speak to all of your senses, what you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you feel. Like it was all supposed to just make all your senses come alive and for you to feel very warm, invited, and connected, right? And so through that I use spoken word, um people who sang. It really didn't matter as long as you had a vibe, right? It was all about good vibes. And I've learned so much from doing these events about spoken word, the different styles. And again, I think spoken word is just dope all around. I think you got some people that use their voice, some people like background music, some people incorporate singing, some people incorporate rapping into whatever they do. But it is phenomenal because it has created some poetry lovers and spoken word fans that wasn't into it until they came and saw, oh wow, this is poetry. I didn't know this is how poetry could be. This is dope. Like, no, we don't just stand in one place and just read straight from the paper. Like we have that and then some. So yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about my story in terms of why I put the show together and its connection to my dad and his passing 6 years ago. I had to find an anchor, a way to deal with my grief. And he used to always tell me to bet on myself. He's probably my biggest cheerleader, my confidant. I would beg to say he was one of my best friends. So him not being here, I've been using doing this show as an anchor to stay connected to him because he was really proud about me doing radio. So that brought me to the mantra, bet on self, hashtag bet on self. I'm always encouraging everybody to find that inner strength that if not now, then when, and if not who, if not you, then who? Because sometimes we get stuck in our way and we get afraid and we need to just kind of jump and do what our passion and our heart says to do. So thinking about that, what are some of your bet on self moments that maybe people have seen or they're quiet and no one even knows that you had to pull that inner strength out?
Oh man, I would say it was the moment where I used my imposter syndrome to my advantage. Um, I consider myself a conscious manifester, and I realized that the mind cannot refuse a question. And so, if I don't have the answer, my subconscious knows. We're all knowing. And my imposter syndrome was telling me, well, you're from the hood. You're not polished enough. You didn't come from a two-parent household. You're dark-skinned, you're curvier, you're rough around the edges. And I was like, that's great. And I used to let that immobilize me, right? To not move, to not do, not show up. And then I realized, like I said earlier, when people see that, that's authentic to me, right? But when people are seeing that and they can see themselves within me, that is exactly why I'm being used. Because these types of people need to see themselves on a different platform, on a different outlet. If the perfect person came and knocked on the door where I'm from, and from my hood, we know you're the police. We're not opening the door for you. We're not talking to you about anything, but I look just like you. You know what I'm saying? So when I knock on the door, I look like I could be your cousin. I look like somebody you went to school with. You're more inclined to open that door. And that's what God really wants for me in this gift, is for me to put myself in a position where I just open the door. So all of the things that people said about me, why it wouldn't work, were the reasons that made me qualified. I look like the people that he's trying to use my gift to impact. And so that's when I realized I have to bet on me. I can't allow these aspects of myself to invalidate me or make me not show up or immobilize me in this moment. No, that is what I'm going to be used to be able to make that impression and make that impact. And then I see it, you know, I see the girls that might have, these other things going on for themselves, but there's a different level of authenticity that comes with me. And that changes the trajectory of what people feel is possible for them when they see somebody that was seemingly, written out of the conversation. And so that's why I say, I'm just betting on myself at this point. All of the things that, made me seemingly undesirable, make me necessary and qualified. And in fact, I wouldn't want to be in a room without the dark skin. In fact, I wouldn't want to be in a room without the curves. In fact, I wouldn't want to be in the room without being from where I'm from, because when the girls where I'm from see me in conversation to possibly win a Grammy, what does that do for them? You know what I mean? So that's when I'm like, I have to do this, and I have to do it now, and I have to use all of these things to my advantage.
Yeah. You make such a point about representation, and someone once posed this to me. If you had the cure for cancer,
Mhm.
right? But you was just too scared to put it out there, would you hesitate if you knew what it was? And I think sometimes we don't realize that by us not stepping beyond our fears, there's somebody that's waiting for you to do that. There's someone who needs to see you do that. And
Yeah.
I think that's the legacy. And it's like sometimes you gotta put that energy out there to give you the courage. Like, if I don't do this, who might be missing out on me? Like, I tell people that all the time who have a business, like, you stop posting because somebody didn't like it, or you didn't, there's somebody that's looking for you. And that day you don't post, they're not going to find you. So keep thinking about, there's billions of people in the world.
Mhm.
You've only like tapped the surface of people. You have to keep putting yourself out there because they can't find you if you don't do that.
Yeah.
So thank you for continuing to be there, because I needed to see you that day. I needed to find you. I needed to meet you. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like, wow, why don't I know her? And I'm like, it doesn't matter because you know her now. And
Yeah.
you were so welcoming. And again, exchanging numbers, you coming on the show. I can't wait for some of the collaborations that I look to do with you in the future. But I think that that's part of how we help the culture, is by collaborating and by edifying each other, right? And me telling somebody about your hotline and me telling somebody that you exist is how we keep on um validating one another and affirming one another. That's how we do it. So I tell people all the time, like your people's posts, share your people's stuff, talk about your people. You don't know how you're blessing someone to continue, because we all have moments where that imposter syndrome sticks up and no one's checking for us, no one's calling, and we can get a little like, well, dang, am I as good as I think I am?
Mhm.
Is anybody going check for me again? What's that word they say in entertainment? Have you lost your appeal, or you go out of style, or you need to stay relevant? All of that. So um thinking about next steps, you got this silent movie that you're working on.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So you said something very beautiful earlier regarding the senses and how spoken word invokes the senses, because essentially the senses are why we are able to live this experience. Like, I can go on and on about that, but like, even when you have a lucid dream,
Mm-hmm.
you had the lucid dream and became aware of the fact that it was a dream because there was an aspect of your senses that got invoked that wasn't. And I realized that where the senses are concerned, when one of them is compromised, the others are heightened. You know, when we talk about now that I'm blindfolded, like, I remember I was playing this trust game with my partner, and I was blindfolded and I had to listen to what he was telling me to do, like move left, move right. It was an obstacle course. It was a trust building thing. And I just felt like when I couldn't see, I could hear better, you know? And it's weird because we think about artists that are like blind or deaf, we see how that highlights another form of their ability to create artistically. So my goal with the silent film is to completely compromise audio, being known for my voice, and we're going to take it away now. So now you have to look at what I'm doing. Now you can notice the small details, the symbolisms, the things that I encompass in the film, you know. And I just really wanted to get back to a lost art, because that's one of the things that I used to study, silent films, because it helped me to be more detail oriented. I think the details are why I'm such a great writer, why I'm such a great person, why I'm such a great friend and lover. I pay attention to the details. I noticed that, you know, you said this a bit differently than how you normally would. So I'm going to inquire about your well being now. Not from a place of overwhelm, but just I just pay attention to you. And so that's my goal with the silent films, is to take away the audio so we can have a conversation. So, yeah.
Mm. And it goes back to what you said earlier about taking the old and mixing it with the new, because that would be an outdated art form. Like, when's the last time you really saw a silent film? And it's not something that people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, again, it is something to be reintroduced, but
Yeah.
introduced with your spin on it, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're gonna add your own elements to it that's gonna make it new
You
and make
already
it
know.
different. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk a little bit about your other work that you do.
Yeah.
In terms, you mentioned you were in school, but there's some other things that you're proud of, and you have your own organization. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. So I am in school for elementary education. Um, the thing that I do better than poetry, that I do better than violin, the thing that I do better is I take care of children really well, and they really, really love me. It's always been like that. And so I'm working now to encompass the art of just artistry with that age group. I do specialize at the ages of about 3 to 6, but I'm good with all ages. But that's just my favorite age group, where I find the most impression. To just have my own daycare facility. It's my own school where um, there'll be a lot more art. We don't do like Pledge of Allegiance in the morning. We say our affirmations. Just a very unorthodox way to introduce curriculum that is necessary for their growth and development. So outside of poetry, that's what I do, but it's still within the vicinity. And then I have a children's poetry book that I'm working on right now. Um, it's a series of books from Safe and Unsafe Touch, which I'm very passionate about, where children are concerned. Manners, affirmations, that I'm very passionate about as well. And of course, the silent film production company. Then I have like a bakery that I'm open. I just learned how to bake cakes. I taught myself. And just a whole lot going on. My friends refer to me as like a serial entrepreneur, but I always try to encompass poetry somewhere in there. My children, like my students, love my words, and I just love kindergartners. Like I do my poetry for them, and they're like, "Wow, Miss Wolf, that was so good. I really love your words." And then they write their poems, and they come to school. And they're like, "I had wrote a poem too. I want to share." I love red strawberries. They are delicious. Give it up for the poet, y'all. So it's just really interesting to see
I love it.
how they show up in those spaces where they watch you, because they're essentially imitating me in my essence. So even
Yeah,
if they're getting on my nerves, they're showing me, you know? And so that's what I'm working on, just absolutely books. And of course, my album, my poetry album, Gabrielle's Daughter, that's set to be released sometime in early 2025. Um, my own album, my own debut album, poetry album, of course. Just the works, man. Just, got to get this stuff done for sure.
I love it. Um, if you weren't doing poetry and you weren't working with children, what would you be doing?
I would be a stay-at-home wife.
Mm,
That's just
okay.
me. Hey, I'm really good at that as well, because I think the role that I play in the community, where just love and my presence is concerned, is also very necessary, and I really like that. I love when I'm done with a show and then I come home and then you know the man, my man and his son is there. I love that. I love that more than anything. My best friend just had a baby. He's 2 months, so I'm a godmom. I have a 13-year-old who I'm a godmom to. So I would say just being a wife and a mother, even if I can't take the kids, with just being a wife, just watching how necessary my presence and my nature is to the growth and development and the purpose of another individual is beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love it. In closing, is there any advice that you have for someone who's aspiring to be a poet and maybe they're on the fence or maybe they are dealing with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I've always encouraged them to go ahead and do open mics and sort of realize there's space for all of our voices, because sometimes you can see people and go, oh my God, they're so good. I know I've done this. I'm not as good as them, or I don't write as good as them. So you don't feel like you want to share, right? Because you don't feel like you're there or you are on a particular level.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for people who are maybe grappling with that?
Okay, so when I say this, I want everyone to undo whatever like familiarity they have with this saying. I don't care. Pretend this is the first time you ever heard it. The reason why people say like in poetry, slam poetry, you got to beat me with a silver bullet is because I'm not trying to get better than anybody. I'm trying to be better than how I was last time. You have to realize like that's a skill, because in competition, right? They just heard my poem, so now they're going to switch their style. They're going to try and adhere to what I just did to beat me. But you don't realize that as soon as I got off the stage, I already critiqued myself. I already realized that I didn't pull that word the way I was supposed to, or use my voice as an instrument the way that I was taught. So I've already beat me. So when you try to go out there and beat that version of me, I've already done it. You're not going to beat me that way. So you have to remember that you're not trying to get better than anybody else but who you were the first time. And if you keep that mindset, you're literally going to have to be that person that they can't kill unless they have a silver bullet. It's just impossible. And so that's my best advice, is just to put it out there, because we can't really do too much work with the blank canvas. You have to throw something on there. And so the ability of not starting doesn't give you the opportunity to create the final beautiful product. It just doesn't. You have to do something, whether that's just you writing or going to some type of open mic. Like, you just have to move. Like, we have this saying, it's rooted in ebonics, but you have to jump off the porch a little bit. You can't stay there in a space and expect, for your gift to be cultivated. And again, like I said earlier, all of the things that you feel like make you insignificant, flip it. This is why I'm better than everyone else. I remember I had this girl that was saying, nobody wants to, see me on these stages in a wheelchair. I said, why not? I ain't never seen no poet on no wheelchair on no big stage. So that thing that you think makes you insignificant makes you unique in your own right. So use the things that tell you can't do it to your own advantage. Turn it back inside out.
Wow. You guys are tuned into Conversations with Coach La. I am your favorite around the way therapist. We've been talking with Alexis Wolfe. She's a spoken word artist. She's an educator. She's a visionary. She's definitely a creative. And we just been really excited to have this dialogue with her. Shout out to everybody who's tuned in from all of the different spaces and places that you log in from iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram. I see y'all out there on Instagram, Facebook. Y'all always rocking with us. And, it's always a dope conversation every single week. Vella Ray, I see you. Hey, Mr. Ed Bale, thank you for tuning in. Sandra Jackson, I see you out there too, sis. Thank you, DJ Wait. Thank you for sharing the live. We appreciate you. If you've enjoyed the conversation tonight, make sure you share the live, make a comment, go follow my sis, Alexis Wolfe Season on Instagram. Also, go ahead and hit the like button, give us some hearts. We like, I know I do. I like all that love and admiration. So, do that as well. Is there anything or any poet that you would suggest, if you had to give an order of poets to go and like check out, if you're new to this poetry world and you're looking for inspiration, name us 3 that everybody should know?
Brittany Barker. You have to. Okay. Number 2 is Jam Spoken. And I want to keep it all female. So I will say Roddy the poet, Radi Roddy. So yeah, those 3 are going to give you your portion. They're going to fill your cup, and they're going to give you the opportunity to reupholster your outdated perception of poetry and spoken word.
Mm-hmm. All right, one more time. And for the people that are in the back, the 3 you named.
So the 3 I named are Brittany Barker, Jam
Brittany Barker.
Spoken. Brittany
Jam
Barker.
Spoken.
Yeah. JAMSPOKEN.
Jam Spoken. Okay.
And Roddy, RADI. No
Rod.
particular order, by the way. They're all
Okay.
three amazing. Matter of fact, they're all the number one spot if that's the case.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys have heard it here first, right here on Conversations with Coach La La La. Make sure you tune in every Sunday at 10 p.m. for another dope conversation. We want y'all to continue to bet on self. You know what you need to do. You need to make sure you hit that like button, follow the Urban Heat, go to iHeartRadio, download the app, and then we got the Urban Escape on the Cape going down on the 29th, 30th, and the 31st. It's going to feature yourself doing cold therapy live. So make sure you go get your ticket and meet me on the Cape. Want to thank you, Miss Alexis Wolfe, for coming and chilling with me tonight on the virtual couch. I'm going to make sure I keep following you. I can't wait for this silent movie and all of the great things you got coming up. And I'll see you soon, sis. Y'all have a good night. And thank you once again for tuning in to Conversations with Coach La La La.
91fm.com and iHeartStation.
The Urban Heat presents a 3-day New Year's Eve resort. Escape on the Cape. Escape on the Cape. New Year's Eve. Escape on the Cape. 3 days of multiple events. 1, an all-white party. Hosted by Twins and Friends. Music by DJ Pleasure and Dex. 2, a silent party. The Pajama Jammy Jam, Part 2, with Night Alarm. Escape on the Cape this New Year's Eve. Plus a live performance from Mr. Cheeks. Mr. Cheeks. Escape on the Cape, December 29th, 30th, and New Year's Eve. Wait, there's more. Don't miss the Urban Heat's New Year's Eve Sneaker Ball. There'll be plenty of activities. Pool parties, spades, family feud. Escape on the Cape. Music by some of your favorite DJs, Chubby Chub, Mo D, Troy Anthony, Junior Rodigan, Mr. Bayesian, DJ Wade, and more. A 3-day New Year's Eve resort. Book your suites now. Book your suite now at heat981fm.com.
Nancy, Smokehouse. It's the Urban Heat. Shout out to Coach La. Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the Urban Heat, just call it. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. If you got something on your mind, you can call him, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, loud, always get a business.